Hey, happy
Hey,
Wine Wednesday.
hey.
How's it going?
Good. How's it going?
Great.
Happy Wine Wednesday.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you for the wine.
Hey, what
Cheers.
happened with the fireplace?
What happened?
Is it not on? Oh, yeah, it's on. Okay, I thought it wasn't on. There you go.
It's on.
Festive, festive. Happy Wine Wednesday, Canadian wine lovers from all across the country. It is another edition of the wine world in Canada. We'll try to unfold what's going on. And this week, it's the Rennie Estate wines. That's where we are focusing on Graham Rennie's wines and all of the treasures of Appassimento that he've made in the last 10, 15 years at the Heron Pond Benchland Vineyard on the Beamsville Bench in Niagara, Ontario. So yeah, Appassimento, we've been hearing this terminology sometime here and there, and sometimes it comes in, and when we're talking about Italian wines, like Amarone, like Ripasso, and yeah, for people who are not studying the wine world, that can be something like, whoa, what's Appassimento, right?
Yeah. Well, I've
Yeah,
heard a
so
few things, and I mean, you went to the birthplace of this winemaking technique up
I
in.
sure went. I sure went there, and I even went to one of the most iconic Amarone producer, Mr. Quintarelli. He's known as the wizard. He's known as the absolute mentor of that. And I know that our guest who's going to join us in a few minutes times has been to Italy as well. He has studied the Appassimento process with probably one of the best school of Appassimento in the world. He was with the Massi family, so he knows what he's talking about when we're talking Appassimento. But just before we bring our guest on, because I'm pretty darn thrilled to chat with him. He's a heck of a guy. Like, I just love his drive. I just love how relentless he is when he has a project in head. Like, he's just like he just go for it, right?
So let's tell the quick story of how we met Graham, and then we'll bring him on because I think he's almost, I think he is in the green room. So we'll make him wait a couple minutes. We'll see you in a second, Graham. But we were heading out. We just did our member event at Bella Terra. We had a big members reunion out at Bella Terra Winery. That was the winery of the year last year that members voted. And
Over 100 people under the tent at Bella Terra. It was a heck of a party, I'm telling you.
Yes, and one of the people at the event, his name was Thane, right?
Yeah.
He said, "Oh, I've kind of, I have a friend who you have to meet, Graham Rennie." And so the next, like, couple days later, it was Carl's birthday. So we are on the way to the.
Mira, pause that, because like during the night, the guys is chasing me. And there's 100 people there say, you need to meet Graham. You need to meet Graham. I'm like, yeah, I will. And like an hour later, he's like, no, you have an appointment on Monday morning. He wants to see you at 11. I'm like, what?
Yeah, so that was like, oh yeah, Monday, that's perfect, because we were heading out to Toronto, and this was right on the way. And so we were heading to the Blue Jays and Red Sox game.
It was this guy's birthday, right?
It was this guy's birthday, and the Red Sox were playing in Toronto, which is Carl's favorite team. So yeah, we went to the game. Here we are at the game. Carl, before the game, had a little birthday cake.
Yeah.
And so before all that happened, we stopped at this winery, and it was pretty beautiful, wasn't it? Like, you could
oh my God, boy. Right at the second that you walk in the gate and you see like that beautiful.
As you look across, there's a little bit of light.
You could see Toronto from where we were.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So it was our first connection with Graham. Like, Graham Rennie was right there waiting for us, and while our kids were crashing the house, getting in their pool, and the whole nine. Yeah, the whole 9 yards. We had one of the best tasting that I had the whole year. Like, we had some epic tasting this year. We had some incredible wine tasting this year, but I'll put that one in the top 5 this
Yeah,
year.
that was pretty amazing.
So
Well,
yeah, so
you
that's how we met.
discovered while we were there, Carl discovered a wine. He kind of started doing like he's tasting it. It's in his mouth, and he starts like because it was a really good wine. It would have been your wine of the year, and it might still be. I don't know, but
Oh, you know what? It's getting pretty late in the year to have something popping up, and it's going to top that off. I'll say something.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was pretty amazing.
Maybe like tonight while we're live, I might beg Graham to at least have one bottle of that wine. So if he says yes while we're live, that's mean like yes, I will get it, right?
That's Carl's method, you know.
Yeah, you know when you talk with someone live,
put him
nobody
on the
can see
spot.
that.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah. So,
Graham's
yeah, we're gonna bring Graham in, but at first I would say that last week we had the Code wine, which Shea Code, the Code family. It was a something extremely unique. That was amazing. That was that clonal selection of 4 different clone of Pinot Noir bottled separately with the 2 estate blend with that. That was the clonal collection. Absolutely amazing with an incredible Syrah and a Chardonnay, Chablis style. And this week we're going completely at the opposite. We had last week the linear, the straightforward, the clonal precision of Pinot Noir, and this year we're going big, bold, full body, like opulence, richness, with Appassimento. Not only Appassimento Bordeaux blend, Appassimento Cabernet Sauvignon, and some of the biggest, richer Chardonnay that we've tasted all year. So I think we have waited long enough. We need to bring the guy in, okay? Because
all right,
yeah,
here comes
it's pretty late out there. This guy's gonna have to go to bed soon, so let's bring him in. He's here.
Us old guys, you know, 10 o'clock. That's it. We're done.
Graham, good evening. How's it going?
Oh, fantastic. Good to see you both.
Great.
Cheers. Cheers to you. What's in your glass tonight?
Tonight is one of the wines that you're not profiling. I just I goofed it. I was cooking up this lamb shoulder, and I thought I'll go grab a bottle of my Ripasso wine because we're profiling it tonight. And then I realized it wasn't part of the Scarpata, exactly. It wasn't part of the offering, but it's a beautiful Ripasso wine anyway. So that's what I'm doing.
Oh, it's great to see you. How's the weather out there? Is this getting cold? What's the deal out in Niagara right now?
It's 6 degrees. It's quite it was foggy today. It's been damp. You know, we had a very cold snap about a week ago, but it's warmed up, and it's not very pleasant. Certainly not as nice as when you were here for the ball game, but yeah. It's classic late November, early December weather. Yeah, better than a foot of snow, right, on the driveway.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you one thing here. It's minus. We're in the minus, and it's pretty cold for the Okanagan. It's -4, -5, and there's a wind chill. Like we're getting closer to -10 tonight. So, so yeah. But we can't complain. We had a great late fall, so we had an outstanding harvest here. So Graham, I want to talk a little bit about first and foremost where you're at, okay? Because just like we mentioned earlier in the show when we opened the show, this week we're featuring Rennie Estate Wine. This is something pretty unique. You guys are making Appassimento down in Niagara. That's the focus. You purchase, and you're on the Beamsville bench, so one of the really sought after prime land of growing grape in Niagara, where some big names are already established. You've been low key in terms of the production because you don't produce a whole lot of wine every year. You're a micro producer, but only focusing on top quality. So how about that? We start with, if you talk a little bit about the land that you have, the Heron Pond Benchland Vineyard, where it's located, and what's the highlight of that piece of land.
So this is it's a 50-acre vineyard. It was one of the earliest planted vineyards in Ontario back in the 60s. It was owned by the Walters family. They planted it mainly to hybrid grapes. And when we purchased the vineyard in 1997, it had been owned by a farmer for a decade that really had done nothing, had let the vineyards, go. And but it was, as you just mentioned in your introduction, it was in a incredibly beautiful location on the Beamsville Bench, in the heart of the Beamsville Bench, surrounded by some of the top wineries, early day wineries of the time. And so we knew we had a super site. And, if you want to make great wine, you got to start with a super site, and you got to manage your vineyard to the very highest levels. So, I had a day job. I was running an investment management business out of Ontario, out of Canada, and running it across Canada, United States. So I couldn't do this full time, but we built up the vineyard, and we eventually moved here full time. You visited us with us this summer, and in that process, and I planted the vineyard in '97. Had a ton of help from lots of really good experts, lots of expertise here in the area. Any kind of expertise you wish to hire in wine country here, you can get it. So lots of people were available, and I hired some of the top names in the industry, and we created a gorgeous vineyard site. And I sold most of my fruit through the first part of 2000 to 2010. And when we moved here full time, I thought it might be time to move from lowly grape grower to, lowly vigneron, make a little wine under my label, my own personal label. So we continue to sell all of our fruit. I just take some of the best lots from certain spots on the vineyard, which I think I showed you when you were here. And
but Graham, before, I don't want to interrupt, but just to put everything in perspective, the Beamsville Bench, for people across the country, okay, British Columbia or all over the prairies, and when we hear Beamsville Bench, to me, and it screams Pinot Noir. Pinot is the king of Beamsville Bench. We've seen some of the big names producing some world-class Pinot, world-class Chardonnay, more on the lighter style of the lighter varietal. But no, when you got there, your idea was completely different. That's what sets you apart of pretty much everyone else in the region, right?
Well, I think I would say, I don't so much everyone in the region, but for sure, my focus was to grow grapes to make wine that I enjoyed drinking myself. And frankly, Pinot Noir is not my favorite varietal. So I ended up planting a chunk of Pinot here on the vineyard because I know
you had to
really well. Yeah, it grows really well, and Chardonnay. And I wanted to make a range of wines, but my heart was always on growing grapes that I could eventually create wine from that would meet my my particular palate, which are more full-bodied, California Cabs, and of course Amarone, Sumer Tuscan type wines. Right, that's just the way. Those are the wines I like to drink. So that wasn't going to get that out of Pinot Noir or Chardonnay. So we had to plant the Bordeaux varietals, which we did. And, there's a lot of farmers here that have pulled all their Merlot out because they just pull their hair out every year it's such a cold, sensitive grape. You lose, lots of Merlot gets lost every year when we have a couple of cold nights here in Niagara. So I continue to replant, vines that I lose in Merlot. Cab Sauv, Cab Franc are a little hardier. But still, there's a lot of, I had dinner with a very, very well-known winemaker, brand owner, winery owner last week. And we were ordering some wine, and I ordered a Cabernet Sauvignon by the glass. And he looked at me and said, "Why are you doing that? Because no one can grow Cabernet Sauvignon in Ontario. You know that." And it just was a bit of a shot. He's so wrong, but there is a view. Yeah, it's Gamay or Cabernet Franc or Pinot Noir or Chardonnay are your primary varietals here in Niagara or here on the bench. But I think I've shown you guys you and Mira and others, that hey, you can grow Cabernet Sauvignon and or Merlot here and make some amazing wines if you manage the vineyard properly, and you don't take any shortcuts, and you just do what you have to do to instead of spending $2,500 an acre per year on your growing plan, you spend $6,000 an acre, and yeah, you'll grow pretty good Cabernet. Now, can you ripen it every year to California standards? No, cannot. We know that. You could in 2007 or 10 or 12 or 16 or 20, you got those beautiful 24 bricks levels out of your vineyard.
But once every 4 or 5 years, it's hard on a business plan.
Yeah, but that's right. So, and that's where that drive to Appassimento came from. Knowing that you can make, much like the folks in the Veneto, in the Valpolicella region of Italy, they suffer the same problem we have, cool climate, and they take their indigenous grapes there and they make a reasonably bland Valpolicella red if they just vinify it normally, but they take the same grapes and dry them for 60 to 100 days. They make Amarone, which
exactly. So instead of selling it for €7, now you're selling it for €50.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's lots of steps in between. A lot more cost to the producer for making that wine, but yeah, the wine certainly can command a premium price and is much more full-bodied and delicious wine.
So the idea, so for you, was to make sure that you can produce every year with the grape varietal that you like, that you cherish. You say, okay, what I'm going to do here, we're going to do a Appassimento style. So year in and year out, I can go out there and produce the best wine possible from one of the best piece of land possible. So before we go to your trip to Italy, because I think it's one of the really key part of the story of Rennie Wine Estate, I would like to know, because I know at the very beginning, you partner up with a very important man in the Canadian wine industry, and that's the reason why the fruit that you grow are so good. It's the perfect spot. So at the very beginning, a guy named Don Trigg came to you because he knew that the piece of land you just purchased was one of the top piece of land, and he wanted to make sure that you do that properly.
Well, it was not exactly that, but close. Don was one of the best reputations in the industry here. Grew a fantastic business, which eventually was called Constellation Wines, which he sold. Sorry, Vincor, which he sold to Constellation in the U.S., and then went on to grow a beautiful vineyard in the Okanagan Valley.
Colmena,
yeah. And Don was a visionary and a real supporter of the Ontario wine industry. And he and I met because I have a day job. It's the reason I don't take all the fruit from my vineyard here, because I ran an investment company for 30 years. So I had met him at an investment conference in 1999 and 2000, somewhere around there. And we introduced, and the person who introduced us said, hey, Don, Graham's bought this vineyard in Niagara. And so Don asked me where it was. I told him. He knew exactly the spot, exactly the location. They had already come up here and taken a look at this when it was for sale. And so he wanted to know if I was going to build a winery. And I said, no. And he goes, well, what do you know about viticulture? I said, really nothing. He goes, well, Graham, I know everything there is to know. And I would love to manage your vineyard and take the fruit for my brand new winery in Niagara Lake with my name on it, Jackson Triggs. And so that was kind of a handshake deal. And 20 years later, or more than 20 years later, they're still running on my vineyard, managing my vineyard and taking fruit for their various brands and allowing me to take what I need for my little project.
That's awesome. So what year was the first vintage of the Rennie Estate winery? My very first vintage was 2009. This was after my trip to Italy and hanging out with Andrea Del Sen, who's the winemaker at Massi and the Boscagni family.
but that was not commercially available. That was just to try to see if we could do something with that Appassimento process. My first official commercial vintage was 2010.
2010. So in 09 you went to Italy, or 08 or 09 you went to Italy. So yeah, so for people who listen to us and know a little bit about international wines, well, Massi, the brand Massi, everyone know the brand. It's one of the most known brand around the world. Yes, from the Veneto region, and known for their Appassimento, known for their Amarone, and also for their Ripasso. So did you decide, was it all planned? They say, okay, I'm going to Italy, I'm going to go to the Amarone school at Massi to learn from there, or you were there, you visited, and when you came back, you're like, okay, that's what I want to do?
No, there is no plan. My whole wine project, there's been no plan. It just kind of see the opportunity and think, that's something I want to do, and that's what I've done. So on that particular trip, I had meetings set up with a number of the best producers at the Massi family. Of course, I was staying there was an agriturismo home on the Massi property that we rented, and we had been introduced to the Boscaienis who own Massi, and met Andrew Del Sen. And as we were going through this whole process, I always loved Amarone wine, and I knew that they dried the grapes, but they brought me in and really showed me everything that they did. Had a ton of questions, and just started thinking, that's just so cool. They're making this amazing wine from their indigenous grapes, Corvina, Rondinella, Molinara, and these grapes are not the high up on the grape food chain. They're not like Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Cab Franc, kings and queens or kings and princes of the red Bordeaux varietals at the top of the grape food chain. And I thought, if they can make that amazing wine from average grapes using this process, well, it seemed to me that we couldn't fail. We would have to make a pretty decent wine if we started with actually, better grapes. Now, they would argue probably that's not that Cab Sauv, Merlot, and Cab Franc are not better grapes. They would argue that. If they were in the room with you, right, there would be a big fist fight. But
they're going to argue on everything. They're Italian. Come on.
But this was just my thinking that if I could take this process and apply it to Cab Sauv, Cab Franc, Merlot grapes that are really well grown on our property, probably make a decent wine. So that was the starting point of the whole process. And so when I came back here, 2009 was a very cold growing season, one of the coldest in like 25 years. And in the late November, we still had a bunch of Cab Franc hanging on our vines. And I thought, maybe this is the year to try that little process. So I called up Andrea Del San and said, would you be interested in helping me with this Appassimento process? Absolutely. So I took a ton of grapes and had a couple of winemakers here in the area, Shiraz Modiar and Marco Piccoli, who and some other folks that were plugged in. I needed a drying facility, so I was able to get a greenhouse available for about 3 months. And we dried grapes for 3 months and made some wine, and that was 2009. And the wine wasn't the best that I've made, but it was not bad. It was still way better than I thought it was going to be. And, over the course of the years, we've improved things like creating a proprietary drying chamber with Vineland Research and Innovation, which has really helped solve all those issues I had with grapes with gray rot and mold that you were getting in the greenhouse because of you couldn't manage the humidity very well in that facility. So we got that totally tightened up now, and so now we're taking the best fruit from my vineyard, certain lots, bringing it to the proprietary chamber, drying it very slowly, for 60 to 100 days. And during that process, just because you pick a grape from the vine, it doesn't just die. It continues to evolve. There's continues to have chemical and enzymatic changes to that grape. And as you dehydrate it slowly, you get all kinds of interesting things happening within that grape cell, and including a small malolactic fermentation that softens the tannins and reduces acidity in the grape before we even get into primary fermentation. So it's no surprise that when you kind of make wine using this very natural process, you create conditions for a wine to be fully voluptuous and soft and low tannin, but preserving all those great flavors you get from Cabernet Sauvignon or Merlot. And that's what we try to do every year.
Yeah, and I would say now that you've been at, like, it's your, now you're like a 12 vintage now, so you know your vineyard very well. You know which pocket of fruit of your vineyard produce pretty much year in, year out, which one of yours, your very specific plot of land, or different years it comes, like how's that evolution of understanding of the vineyard came up to you?
Well, I think that just comes with living on the vineyard, and you're here every day, and you're walking it almost every day. You know, had a bunch of German Shepherds for years, walking 4 or 5 times a day. You're tasting fruit all throughout the season. You know, once veraison occurs, you're tasting fruit right up to harvest. And so just over time, you get to know exactly where some of the best spots are, where a particular aspect, as you know, where I picked my Cab Sauv from for the Super G and the G, is right down on the north end of our vineyard that has a west-facing aspect with a slope. And so it just gets a little more sun every day than in any other part of the vineyard. And so that little block ripens more so than other blocks, you know, so I can pick that fruit a little sooner and avoid any risks with frost that often comes, you know, late in season. One of the great concerns all of us have here in Niagara.
Something very fun that, like, around these lines, like, we did something pretty fun together in September where we took some members of Carl's Wine Club. We took them to the Aaron Pond Benchland Vineyard. And at this point, it was first week of September, the Chardonnay grape, when you tasted it off the vines, the flavor profile was connecting so much with the flavor profile of the Christine 2017 that we tasted after. It was absolutely incredible. And I kind of snuck one of a grape of a little bunch in my pocket. And when we got back to the winery, I was like, I gave everyone each and every one a grape to taste it side by side. It was a pretty unique experience. It was something really cool to see the connection between the grape straight with the wine.
Christine just came by here as you were talking, and she just looked over to me and she just kind of said, "Did he pay for that?" So I don't know. Did you leave a handful of grapes? You know, at $3,200 a ton, that's worth probably $3.
The check's in the mail. You didn't get it? But the experience is very fantastic to see, just like the explosion of flavors right off the vines. That leads me to bring, because though Christine, it's the name of the Chardonnay, and Christine is your wife. Now you have wine who's like the name of the certain of your wines are named after your kids and after your family member, correct?
Right.
So
have got, that's right, somebody in the family named someone. The wines are named after each certain members of the family. That's right. That's really cool.
That's really cool. And I was when I was mentioning that the Christine should be costing a little bit more, because I believe that wine can be charged at least $60-65, no problem. And I think Christine had a problem with that, so that was a no-go, right?
Christine says you can't charge more than $40 because I want my friends to be able to buy it. So he's the boss. It's their wine, right? So that's the marketing for Christine.
I had a couple of questions about the Chard, specifically about the Chard, because I'm a big Chardonnay fan. I love it. And when you open a bottle of Christine, first and foremost, this is the long game, because this wine needs time. This wine can age for 10, 12 years, no problem at all. This wine is built on an extremely solid structure. But when I smell it, I detect like the natural ferment, right? So explain a little bit, what's the process with your Chardonnay, and what's your vision with your Chard?
I think I would say the vision is really just to try to create a wine that tastes like fruit right off your vines as best you can with minimal intervention. So, you know, we hand harvest as late as we can. I always try to get 23.2 bricks. If I can, great phenolics, bring it to the winery. It's all hand harvested, brought to the winery, fermented, small bunch fermentation, whole bunch fermentation, and all wild natural yeasts. So, and then it's barrel aged for, you know, often 20 to 24 months, somewhere in that category. Sometimes a little less, but generally speaking, that particular fruit from that special lot right outside, you know, our kitchen area is, it's a hot spot on the vineyard, I think. And so it ripens beautifully and we get some really big flavors compared to, you know, the Chardonnay across the pond, which we walked across to on that side. You know, it's a totally different style. People might love that style of wine, but for my palate, I like the more full California style of Chardonnay, but with a good backbone, good acidity, great food wine. You know, and by the way, you know, as much as any one of these wines can age for a long time, you know, I've got some 2008 wine in my cellar that I made with Marco actually way back when, because Marco's been sourcing fruit from here since 2004, and it's you know, it really aged well for a decade. So from 8 to 18, it was really amazingly good and fresh. I would say, you know, I started to maybe it was just the cellar it was in, but so it started to fade, you know. And so I think with Chardonnay, it's always nice to get a couple of years of bottle age, but not a wine that particularly you want to age, in my view anyway. I think why not drink it when it's fresh and young, still has all those gorgeous flavors.
Yeah, there's an explosion of flavor. Absolutely, it explodes. Need a little bit of time to open up. But I saw that there's quite a difference between 17 and 18. So it leads me to explain. I want us to talk a little bit about the 18 vintage, because there's something brand new coming up for the first time from the 2018 vintage. Yeah. But 18 was a fairly different vintage than the predecessor on the 17, correct?
Oh yeah, 18 was one of the most difficult vintages in the decade. And it was a cool start to the season, late bud break. And then it got really hot, amazingly hot, and everyone thought, "Hey, we're going to have a great year." But it got so hot in July and August, tons of humidity. There was issues within if you weren't managing your vineyard really well, you could have some significant issues with rot and mold. And then just as we thought that, you know, everything was getting ready for harvest, the rains came, and it just killed the whole 3-week period that had been devoted to getting all your grapes in was put on hold, and there was a fair bit of mold and rot in the various you know, across the peninsula here. Some areas hit worse than others, but everybody was affected, and so that we ended up having to pick a little later. You lost a lot of fruit. You couldn't pick it. It was not that healthy. And so the sugar levels weren't at the end of the day, the sugar levels weren't as high as they were in 17. You know, 17, the Cristina, as you may know, was like 14.2% alcohol, all natural, right? No Appassimento, of course. And that's because that was a fully ripe year. I think 23 and a half bricks. I think the 18 was probably closer to 21 and a half, 22 bricks.
Oh yeah, the 18's at 13% alcohol on the dot. So there's a fairly difference. There's no big difference in explosion and impurity of fruit, but you can feel there's less weight. It's not as weighty. It's not as big. It's a little bit more balanced in terms of structure.
And you know what? In our at the winery, I was talking today about some of the wines, and within our professional group of tasters, there are people that love the 18, people that love the 17. You know, it's a very personal preference.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah,
100%. And when it's time for your big wines, the Super G, the Colleen, that's where you keep only in the best year the best block of the vineyard, your best barrel, the best of the best.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, 18 didn't provide the length of growing season. It has some issues. So you have decided to declassify. You decided 2018, I'm going to sacrifice. I'm not going to make the Colleen. I'm not going to make the Super G. But you still have some pretty darn good fruit available. So what's the plan with the fruits?
Yeah, so I only make, what I do is I vinify, I dry the grapes for 60 to 100 days in our chamber. I bring them to the winery, we ferment them, and then we put them into barrel for 24 months. And those are some dehydrated grapes there, you can see them. That's what Appassimento does. And ultimately then you're tasting, you're barrel tasting these wines before you release them. And I was getting ready to see if I could find a couple of barrels. I only ever make 50 cases of Super G or Colleen. That means I got to find 2 barrels within the Cab Sauv or the Cab Franc world or grouping to allocate to these 2 wines. And so anyway, I could not find. I only found those wines, by the way, 2013, 2016, and 17. They were the only 2 years I made the Super G. So and the Colleen only in 2016. And so 2020, which is still in barrel right now, that was a beautiful vintage. I'm pretty sure I'll be making Super G and Colleen, 2 barrels from that vintage. But you can see quite sporadic. And it really comes down to, if you're going to charge $125 a bottle, it's got to be exceptional wine. So in 18, I just couldn't pull the trigger. I just didn't think I could say with a straight face that this was my Super G and Colleen equivalent of either the 17 or 16 vintage. Very good wine. It was a beautiful wine, just not quite where I wanted it to be for 125. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to just let it sit in barrel and see what happens. And a little experiment, I thought, let's see if we can keep it a little longer than normal. So I kept it for 34 months in barrel. And I'd never done that before. 34 or 38 months, I forget. It was a long time. And I just bottled it in the summer here. And it's pretty stunning wine. Yeah, it's right there. You got the first you got the hot.
When I got something like that in the mail, I know it's going to be freaking cool to taste because nobody gets that, right? So I was like, oh my God, this is really, really darn cool. This is the declassified Colleen, the declassified Super G, at the third of the price. Basically, Colleen and Super G goes for $125. This goes for $45. So this is the brand new, first time ever. Now the new label arrived last Friday. Take the label in. Carl's Wine Club goes on Monday morning with the labels still like let's go. We need to label these bottles, but the first time ever. I have to say, the wine it's outstanding for that price. Absolutely, that's a heck of a deal. Listen, I've tasted the Colleen with you. I've tasted the Super G, but these, like, for the third of the price, like, I'm in. It's fantastic. I gave for the Obsidian, I will tell you here as a little primer, 93 points for the Obsidian. This is a great wine for 93 points. The concentration is fantastic. And what I love of that, it's the depth, the length, and the complexity. This is truly Cab Sauv. You feel the graphite. You got like all of the attribute of Cabernet Sauvignon. You get it in there, plus the richness and the opulence. And the second day, geez, the spice coming out on the second day. These wines are built strong. It's really cool. Really, really, really cool.
Well, it's a great reflection of the vineyard, and it was an interesting. It kind of says to me that there's some value here in continuing to age some of your wines in barrel for a longer period of time than even 24 months, which is a huge inventory cost, as you know. But so by happenstance, I was able to do it, and the result has been pretty outstanding. Yeah, we had our Christmas party last night with the team, at a restaurant here, a really cool wine restaurant, and everybody was tasting these wines and just blown away. And of course, they couldn't believe the winery owner had just said to me before we finished dinner, like, I've got to buy some more Super G. And I said, okay, you know, we've got a few left, you know, that we can send over your way. And then he tasted this wine here.
It's like, yeah, cancel the order of Super G.
That's right. Not a good move, Graham. Not a very good marketing.
No, you know what? Like, okay, we know, like, you understand, creme de la creme, right? The Super G, the Colin is the top of the top. And when you taste it, they're not far behind, especially with the extreme difficult vintage, especially for 2018, and the result, all of that is, I was blown away.
This wine is going to be gone. I mean, it's just at the price point. We're doing, your club members got first dibs here because we agreed to do that. And then we're releasing this wine December 17th. But I only made 25 cases for Cab Franc. I made that available for sale, and 50 of the Cab Sauv, the Obsidian. So it'll be gone. At that price point, it'll be gone. So,
I want, because one of you have you here. I want to tell everyone, because there's not a whole lot of people who knows that I taste around 1,200 to 1,400 different Canadian wines every year, and I always kept at the end of the year my top 10 wine of the year, and I do a big release. I do a full 2-hour show early the following year to reveal my top 10 wine of the year, and I have to tell you, Graham, the Colleen 16. As per December 5th, there's not one wine so far who has rated higher than the Colleen 2016.
I guess you're saying I better hold a bottle for you from my personal cellar.
You know, I like, if I do, like, you know, like that big part, I would like to be able to open that bottle live, but I'm just saying, I was telling Mira, I might know someone at the winery who can be able to hook me up.
Yeah.
But that doesn't change the fact that at the end of the day, Colleen 16 is the best wine I've tasted this year.
Amazing, yeah. I remember I'm at my tasting bar in my home, and you were just right here. And I thought remember, you came in and I was all pumped up because I thought you were going to be really excited about my favorite wine.
The Super G, I know.
That's right. And I was kind of waiting for you to kind of talk about it and get into it. And no, you kind of went right after it. I can see that light bulb on your head.
I know. Mira was like, Jesus Christ. She knew when I had it she knew. She's like, okay, here you go. He's doing it again. But yeah.
Spirit ripped.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was great. So no, I haven't tasted. It's the top wine that I've tasted the whole year. Incredible. So now it brings me like the Onyx. So it's the baby Colin. It's the baby sister of Colin here, but for a fraction of the price. So really, really, really darn impressive what you guys are doing there. Graham, before I let you go, I just want to touch base on the new project a little bit. I've been involved working with you behind the scene a little bit. I had the privilege.
Oh, that's so good.
How's that, eh? Yeah. She's pretty good, eh? But the night. I love it. Isn't it the best part? Is like the Niagara Custom Crush Studio, Graham, a new project that you've been involved. Like you're at the helm of that really, really, really cool project in Niagara, a custom crush facility where artisan winemaker, virtual winemaker can bring their stuff there and make their wine either on their own or either under the supervision of your director of operation, Mario Piccoli, who's an amazing winemaker, has 25 years experience in the region. And now you're building a state-of-the-art production facility, and you're going to have a beautiful, humongous retail space for all of these virtual winemaker, including you, to sell your wine, because that's the future, right? Like you guys need retail space. Shiraz of Malabar was so great with you for so long, but you need your own retail space. So can you tell us a little bit about the Custom Crush Studio? I think it's an amazing, beautiful concept that Niagara deserves to have.
Well, yeah, this model exists all over the world, mainly in California, Oregon, some in a couple of crushes in Texas, in Europe. And it really comes with the maturation of the industry. You can never start a crush at the very beginning of the cycle of a winemaking community. It's only after you get, like we've been doing this now for about 40 years in Ontario. And so you have your tried and true, 150 brick and mortar wineries all over Niagara on the Lake, Beamsville, Prince Edward County, North Erie Lake, North Shore, Lake Erie. So with that development, you've had in the last, I would say 10 years, this explosion in what the term we call virtual winemaking, virtual winemakers, virtual wine brands. And these are really talented winemakers who are producing amazing juice, but don't have the money to have own a vineyard or a winery. And so they are making their wine at someone's facility. And most of them are not able to sell their wine at that facility. They can make it, produce it, but they've got to sell it direct to consumer on their own through their own social media channels, or to the LCBO or to licensees. I had the benefit. Martin Malabar owned Malabar Winery, good friend, very generous, allowed me not only to make my wine with Shiraz at Malabar, but to have my wine sold there, and allowed the team, the sales team, to embrace me and my wines. Fantastic family at Malabar there, and they did a super job, and we had a lot of fun together. And so as I was retiring out of the investment business after I sold my company, I thought, if I was going to kind of get into the next part of the journey, why not create a crush facility to provide not only my own brand with access to consumers, but I already had that, but to be able to provide this plethora of virtual winemakers that are in the region. There's over 30 of them now, and growing every month. There's a new one.
Exactly. Every season, there's another 5, 6, 7 popping up, right? And these are talented people.
Very talented, and also it provides an incubation for many assistant winemakers or even winemakers at a place who maybe secretly have always wanted to make their own wine, but just couldn't do it at the place they're at. Here they can make 2 barrels or 3 barrels under their own brand and start to play around with stuff and see if they can grow. Maybe it's something you want to do, more full time in a decade, but at least they can get started and they can have someone selling their wine, because it's not just making the wine that's key. We all know that lots of good people can make wine. You got to sell it. And that's the thing that a lot of winemakers, people who come into the business, don't appreciate, that it's easy to kind of make the wine once you get a vineyard and a winemaker and some yeast and mix it all together. You can make wine, but boy, you gotta know how to sell
the darn. You gotta sell the darn thing.
Yeah, you gotta have distribution. You either have to have your own retail store, or you have to have channel like Carl's Wine Club. You need as many channels as you can get. But having a retail store open 7 days a week, where people can come in and taste it at their leisure, is hugely positive. So that's the facility we're building, and spade goes in the ground probably in January. We started some drilling this week.
I saw that. So exciting to see the big machinery starting to dig.
We're getting calls, by the way. It's so cool. We had a call this week from an individual who, wants to make for weddings kosher wine for his community, and we're talking 3,000 cases, like first order. Whoa! So, not sure that we can do it. There's a couple of steps to make kosher wine that we have to kind of look into, but there's been a huge amount of interest. We're getting, actually, we've been digging hard, talking to everybody there is that we know about the project, but it's been fun the last week or so. We've been getting phone calls from interested parties. So yeah, it's a fun project.
That's amazing. And I think that you mentioned it perfectly. I think the Niagara wine community now is ready for that. There's a place for it. There's the industry is mature enough to get to that level. Mira, so great to see you.
Yeah, I'm back. I wanted to say, you know, I've had COVID and now like post-COVID, and it's awful. Terrible. I was having a terrible day, and now I feel so much better listening to your stories.
Mira, that's the G you're drinking. That's what makes you feel better.
What is in this glass? Because it's so freaking good.
That's the G. That's the G. I gave that wine 94 points this week. 94.
It's amazing. So with COVID, I have not for 2 weeks now been able to taste anything, and it's so boring. It just takes the joy out of everything when you can't taste things. It's horrible. Like you're eating, but you don't feel like you ate because you don't taste anything. But with this, I'm tasting things, and it's so fantastic.
You're back. I think you're all back.
Just to tell people how powerful these wines are, right? It gets through COVID like that. So better than a shot, or better than Buckley syrup. You get a glass of G. And man, you're back on your feet now. To be honest, G is to me, it's balance. Yes, it's a big wine. It's a powerful wine. It's a Appassimento, but there's a balance in there. There's a beautiful freshness. There's beautiful acidity. It's Bordeaux blend at its best. And 94 points. A beautiful, beautiful, rich wine. Well done. Graham, it's always great to connect with you. Thank you so much for spending your late Wednesday night with us. I guess nothing better to do than watch the Maple Leafs or spending time with Carl's Wine Club, right?
That's right. And it's like 5 to 9, so I got an hour before bedtime. Thank you very much for that.
Perfect. Hey, Graham, I just want to say before you go, you sent us some really cool little clips of I guess this was the recent harvest. What was this?
No, this is these were my this is a 2023 harvest. Yes, that just was in our drying chamber for about 65 days. We just got it delivered yesterday, and it was Mike was bringing them in. This is how they're wrapped. They're wrapped like this when they're in the drying chamber. And today we began fermenting these bad boys. Yeah.
So that's the next step of the 2022 cycle, right? After the growing season, the harvest, the drying, and now it's going to be the press and the fermentation.
That's correct. It's 2022 vintage, yeah, and it was a lighter yield year than we've had across the board. There was a lot of damage in a lot of vineyards, but the quality of the fruit's spectacular. We brought a bunch of these grapes to the dinner last night and just let everyone taste them. Just fantastic. The flavors are there, so good. So I think it's going to be another beautiful wine. You can see that dehydration there. That's cool. Yeah,
get to the little shrivel, right? The little raisin. Hey, do you want to come and say hi?
Yeah.
Come here.
Right. These are my swimmers. Swimmers, yeah.
Santa's here.
That's Santa's here. Oh, that's great. So I think that it's time for us to go. We'll let you go, Graham.
Thank you,
Graham.
We'll be in touch, and happy Christmas to all your clients and friends out there.
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you for the wine, for the little post-COVID pick-me-up there.
Yeah, that's my new marketing. I think I'm already thinking about the new marketing plan. You know, why go buy Pfizer when you can drink the G?
That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Is you sell the G to the pharmaceutical.
Take care.
Thank you very much, Graham. That was fantastic.
Have a great night. Yeah, well, I'm glad for this because, we got to keep testing every night to see if my taste and smell is back. And I think it's getting better now that I can sort of taste this one.
Well, I saw the first reaction with the Obsidian, the Cab Sauv Appassimento. That's a big monster, 17% alcohol, right? And that was the first time in 3 weeks where you got a reaction to it. I'm like, whoa, okay. I say, hey, you're feeling something, right? They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, that's coming back up. So the Obsidian, I would say, absolutely waking up your sense. And now the G are coming in and absolutely taking you to the promised land. So
It's pretty exciting, pretty awesome. Yeah, lots of fun. Lots of fun.
So this is Rennie Estate Winery Week. Let me do a little recap because I don't think that people realize how spectacular these wines are. Like the lowest rated wine, it's a 91 plus. Okay, we're almost at a 92 points for the Christine 18. That's Chardonnay, full body, rich, natural ferment, though, that brings like that vanilla bean caramel, depth and complexity. I decanted that white. I had to.
I was gonna say, yeah, this
I didn't have to, but for me to have a full enjoyment of that, I knew like it was pretty tight. I'm like, let's kick the shit out of that wine. It needs a little, it needs some shake up here. I put that in the decanter, give it half an hour, and boom. After that, it came all onto its own, and is wow, like pretty. Like I gave a 93 to the 17, but that 18, I would tell you one thing. This one has a lot of long-term potential. 2 to 3 years, it's going to be right in its prime. So I love that Chardonnay. Now moving on in the red. So we're privileged enough to be the first in the country to give to give our members the first crack at the Onyx and the Obsidian. So the declassified Super G and Colleen, the top single varietal Cap Franc and Cap Sauve, each and every one, 25 cases for the Onyx, made only pure Cap Franc Appassimento, 92 plus points. The Obsidian, 100% Cap Sauve, a monster, a big wine, 17% alcohol. Big, bold, rich, spicy. This is something else. If you like big wines, stop looking. Stop looking. Get that. It's big, but the thing is, it's big, but there's a big freshness in the middle. In the mid palate, the acidity and the freshness just pops and makes it like it's not a heavy, powerful wine. It's a lifted, powerful wine. It's incredible.
It's a really good point, because normally I'm not a huge fan of the Appassimento because I feel like, oh, I either have to have a huge steak with it or it's more like dessert and dark chocolate kind of thing. But with these ones, there's enough freshness in them that I feel like you could just sit there and sip on it like I have been for the last hour.
Way to go, girl. Way to go, girl.
And it's perfect for that. It's great.
Yeah, so there's for the Obsidian. The Obsidian, I was absolutely floored. Like I give it a 93 points, and I'm still thinking maybe it could have been another like half a point or something, because in a sense that it's big, it's bold, but the fresh, and you bring the price point into it, and you're like, okay, at $45, I put that on the market among the other big California cab. There's not one Napa Valley cab at that price. Like, no, you can't find that. And with that richness and that softness, and there's also tannin at the end. This point is like, whoa, wow. So, yeah, really, really. Sorry, I just got the hiccup.
Oh, no.
Woof.
Funny.
But yeah, super impressive. So it's the first ever release of the Obsidian and the Onyx. First time ever. Carl's Wine Club has their first dib. This is real cool. That I'm really grateful, and I have to thank Graham and the team for giving us the first dib to these wines, because I know, like, right after the Carl's Wine Club feature, there's a bunch of restaurants, all of the top restaurants down in Niagara, they all want to buy these wines. At that price point, it's the perfect price point for restaurants. So they're going to be gone. So yeah, get into it, because we're pretty lucky. And we finished the 4-bottle lineup with the G. So the G assemblage is the French word for blend. So the Bordeaux blend, the three king grapes of Bordeaux, Cap Sauv, Cap Franc, and Merlot. A beautiful blend of these three grapes, all Appassimento. And G, it's all about finesse, power, and balance. That's where power meets elegance. That's big. It's a Appassimento, it's a Marrone style, but it's balance. Nothing clashing. Everything is in perfect symphony. The like the synergy among all of these grapes is absolutely perfect. That's the flagship wine of the winery, and darn, it's well done. It's beautiful. It's sexy. It's soft. It's suave. It's everything that you want for a big but balanced wine. So yeah, 94 points. Like, and I'm not the only one who've been dreaming. Like when you read a couple of some people down in Niagara when they've did the tasting with Graham, not to mention our friend Rick Vansicle at Wine in Niagara. Rick, the same thing. You rated these wines like really highly, like it's the same as I did. He didn't have the chance to try the Onyx and neither the Obsidian yet, but too bad Rick was the first for this one. Yeah, another like Jamie Good, like Dr. Jamie Good from the Anorak Wine, a wine doctor out of UK. Jamie Good gave 94 points as well to the G. All of these wines, all of the writers since vintage 2014, I would say, have rated these wines very, very highly. And when I tasted that first, like Mira was there, like we were sitting at the house on the Aaron Pond Benchland Vineyard on the Beamsville bench, and we on our way back to Toronto from the vineyard, we were looking at each other. I remember saying, "Wow, Jesus Christ, these wines are incredible." And I was just wondering at some point if it was just the emotion of the moment. Because, you know, when you're at the vineyard, the view is just so exceptional. You get into that. Sometimes it tastes better when you're on site, right? No. Even back here, wine shipped to us. When I went back in September, no. These wines are the creme de la creme in the country. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yes, very exciting. Do you know what's around me right now? I got like boxes and boxes of stuff around me.
I think it's worth talking about it. Yes. Our favorites are back. Our favorites are back.
But there's these ones which we've never seen.
I think you should show it to people. Yeah. So. And you guys who know us, right? Like Gabriel glasses are our favorite glasses. Yes, Riddell or
We've broken a few on air. I sat on one at one point, remember?
Oh yeah, well, I sure do. There is that's the tumbler, right?
This is the Gabriel glass, but like with the stem cut off. And it's at a fraction of the price too. So if you like these kinds of glasses, they're great for like beer as well, I've heard.
Yeah, because for the same price of 2 of the stem, you got 6 of the stemless, right?
That's right.
I guess that's how expensive the stem is.
Well, hey, not as expensive as the Gabriel Gold, which unfortunately have been sold out since the start of the pandemic. But
yeah, in North America. They didn't bring them back in North America. I think they're just available in Europe.
Yeah, unfortunately. But that's the one I sat on. So those ones were $100 each, and they were mouth blown. These ones are machine made, but they're just like the Gold, exact same. They're just, the only way you'd be able to tell is if you're Lisa and Jared in Calgary, some of our members that love these glasses, or if you could see the stem here and the weight of it. Well, the Gabriel glass is half of this, if not less. So, I mean, the Gold is, but it's not available anymore. And for me, I say good riddance because I have broken about 8 of those. And every time it's like, $100. Oh, that's horrible. So
Yeah. So
And
now
these are
the regular
so
Gabriel glass are
much more
back.
durable. These are so much more durable, and they still have that same shape, that same
Perfect. Yeah, it's the all for one, and it's the same design, just a little bit more weight that I prefer personally. I think there's a better feel for me when I swirl. Like it's like I don't feel like if I'm swirling nothing. And the box, right?
The box is awesome because if you go out somewhere, hotel, you're on a picnic or something, you bring this
Yeah,
box.
listen to that. It's all in one, right? So you take your wife out for a nice night at the hotel. You know you're gonna have lots of fun. You know you're gonna order a bottle of champagne at the room, and like the whole 9 yards. You bring your Gabriel glass in the box, and now you're drinking your champagne in the darn cool glass.
Really good glass that gives you the aromas and the flavors that you want. Like it's nothing worse than a really great wine and like a bad glass, and you can't
Now
experience
you
it.
can't enjoy it proper. Daryl, like my hotel fantasy here.
It's
What,
true.
Daryl? Come on, you should know me by now, hey?
It's true. It happened to us last year at we went to a fancy hotel and we forgot our glassware. Terrible.
That's true. That's true. At the GW.
Yeah.
At
In Vancouver.
yeah.
Yeah. We were like, oh, everything's perfect. We just don't have the right glassware. And we even had the nice bottle of champagne and everything. And then it was like the hotel glass, the big, heavy, smelly hotel glass. Once a year, poor Carly.
Oh, you take what you got, right? And you keep the smile and you keep plowing away and hoping for next year again.
Yeah. It was actually this year that we went to that. It was this year, but it just feels like a long time ago.
I guess. So the Gabriel glass are back, and the stemless are in stock as well. So we just ordered some at home. We have some extra. So if people decide for Christmas, if you want an order, maybe something, Mira's going to put the link right in there as well with our Rennie Estate Winery feature. Arguably, to my opinion, the best Appassimento in the country. We have many friends around the country who are making great Appassimento. Let me just mention just a few. I would say Bellaterra make a great Appassimento. Our friend at Intersection here in BC makes great Appassimento. Foreign Affair makes some great Appassimento. I'll tell you one thing. I don't believe that to my personal opinion, I would say that Graham Rennie at Rennie Estate Winery makes the best Appassimento in the country. These wines are more than fabulous. These ones are spectacular. And to me, when I go through that Cap Franc, Capsule in single varietal Appassimento, it's pretty special. In the G, it's pretty special as well. So yeah, I love the man. I love Graham. I love the piece of land that he owns, because I think it's one of the most amazing vineyard in the country, and the wines that he makes are super special. So yeah, Graham Rennie at Rennie Estate Winery out of the Niagara Custom Crush Studio, friends of the club. And this is our second to the last offer of the year, and we're getting there. Christmas is right around the corner. We have the glassware available. We have big Amarone style Appassimento wines ready to go. So let me know if you guys need anything, because we're still here for a few more weeks before we head out to the island.
Yes, that's where we're going to be for Christmas for a week, and then we'll be back in the Okanagan after that. So
there you go.
Are we doing the New Year's Eve wine exchange, Carl Boucher?
Why not? Why not?
Years,
we've been having fun for 2 years with that. Hopefully we'll do it again. I don't know. What do you think?
I think we should. So it's like a fun game where you can steal other people's wine bottles and then have them shipped to you after
It's
the
the
game.
Chinese gift exchange, but apparently I can't say that again anymore. Like apparently it's really badly viewed, so I can't say the Chinese
Yeah,
gift exchange.
I don't know what the origins of that were, but I'm guessing there might be like sort of a New Year's game that's similar in China. I don't know,
I
but
don't know.
we figured we don't know, so we won't call it a Chinese gift exchange. We'll just
Oh,
call it.
yeah, that's why I said I can't mention it, so I don't, right?
We'll
So
just call it the New Year's gift exchange. But it's kind of like
it's the Carl's Wine Club gift exchange.
yeah, it's the Carl's Wine Club.
See?
Yeah. So yeah, like all the bottles are wrapped up, so you can't see what they are, but they have a number on them, right? And everyone gets a turn to pick a number or steal somebody else's that's already been revealed. So it's kind of fun. You see, like somebody get an Appassimento wine, and let's say you like Appassimento, and there's like a Super G from Niagara.
What do you mean, Super G?
And it's worth $125. Let's just say, just an example, right? And so you have the choice to either steal that person's $125 wine or take a risk and open a different wine, which might be a $25 wine. It might be a $50 wine. It might be a wine you don't like or a wine you do like. So yeah, it's kind of a fun game. And by the end of it, you end up with a bottle, whether it's the one you wanted or the one that someone stole and you got back, who knows, right?
And we ship it out to you. So
yeah. So then you get to enjoy that a few days after New Year's.
Yeah, because we're gonna do that on the 31st, like every year. So that's the New Year's Eve party. It takes 90 minutes around. We're taking 20, 25 members at the most. And yeah, we're gonna send the link pretty soon. But I guess that we just decided live here tonight that we're gonna do it again. So why not? Why not?
There you go. That'll be fun.
So
it's a good way to kick off New Year's Eve, right? Like I don't always stay up till midnight. We sometimes change the clocks so the kids think it's midnight. But we do it nice and early in the evening, so it can be your kickoff, or it can be like right before your pretend New Year's, and then you go to bed nice and early. It's up to you.
There you go. So best Appassimento in the country here, arguably.
Rennie Estate. There you
So
go.
here you have Rennie Estate Winery.
We learned all about Appassimento, which was super interesting. Drying the grapes to get more flavors, more concentration. Really cool.
There you go. So I think we're good to go. I have some beef stew on ready to go.
Bam.
Wow. I love it.
Try this G that I have here in my glass. So this is like the third or the fourth day of this wine, I think. There's a little bit. Fourth. It's just as outstanding. Even with my COVID, I can still taste a lot in that wine. It's incredible.
I know it is. And for $60, yes, it's a premium bottle of wine, but it can be much more.
Including tax.
Including tax. So it's not outrageously expensive.
All these wines we featured from Rennie this week are a ridiculously good value for what you get. Like $45 including tax for these Appassimento. There's a reason why these will be sold out in like 2 weeks.
Oh yeah. After this week of the club, it's gone. I
think so.
Yeah.
All
okay.
Right.
Well, Canadian wine lovers, Carl's Wine Club members, Mira Boucher,
Carl Boucher.
all of you guys are all over the country. Thank you again for joining us, for tuning in, for listening to Graham Rennie and his story. It was an epic episode. Darn that I have fun. And now we're going to go finish the G with our beef stew. So,
bam.
See you next time.
Cheers, guys.